Invisible aliens beyond understanding exposed. There's an estimated 250 billion stars in the Milky Way alone, and that causes some to wonder if we are actually alone or if there's something out there. What could it be? Uh, Maybe alien civilizations are invisible to our technology. I personally am of the belief, this is me, just personally, that as far as physical, conscious, intelligent life as we think of it, I don't think that there are life forms like that have been created on other planets in the same way that we were, or that evolved, or anything like that. Now, I do believe that there are entities out there. There's like angels, demons, extra dimensional entities. I also believe there are just normal three-dimensional biological entities, but that haven't been created by God, but have been created by something far darker. And we'll get a little bit into that. But this article, I found it interesting. It's not a news article or anything, so you take it for take it for what it is. But I thought it was interesting enough to share because it kind of falls along the lines of what's called the extra-dimensional hypothesis, and it's something I wrote about in my book Cherubim Chariots, exploring the extra-dimensional hypothesis. So it says, do aliens exist in forms we cannot conceive, as several scientists pointed out? Have we been looking in the wrong place at the wrong time in the wrong way? Asked Dr. Paul Davies from Arizona State University. Xenology is a most fascinating subject as it deals with all aspects of extraterrestrial life. We would all like to know what they look like, what they think, how they behave, and so on. However, in order to answer those questions, we must first find those extraterrestrial civilizations. As the quest for extraterrestrial life continues, scientists keep debating what methods should be used. According to Dr. Paul Davies, the approach currently being undertaken by SETI researchers is too narrow, assuming aliens communicate the same way we do here on Earth. There are an estimated 250 billion, or 2.5 times 10. They have this written weird. We'll just say 250 billion stars in the Milky Way alone, and over oh, I see what they tried to do. It's 2.5 times 10 to the, or 11 to the 10 to the 11th or whatever. They have it all in the same font size, so it looks like 2.5 times 1011. But anyway, and over 70 sextillion in the visible universe. And many of them are surrounded by multiple planets. The sheer size of the known universe is staggeringly and inconceivably vast. The odds of there being only one single planet that evolved life among all that unfathomable vastness seem so incredible that it is all but completely irrational to believe. Well, I guess I'm irrational then, but but it says, but then where are they? Asked physicist Enrico Fermi while having lunch with his colleagues in 1950. Fermi questioned, if there are other advanced extraterrestrial civilizations, then why is there no evidence of such, like spacecraft or probes floating around the Milky Way? His question became famously known as the Fermi paradox. The paradox is a contradiction between the high estimates of the probability of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations and yet the lack of evidence for or contact with any such civilizations. Given the extreme age of the universe and its vast number of stars, if planets like Earth are at all typical, then there should be many advanced extraterrestrial civilizations out there, and at least a few in our own Milky Way. Another closely related question is the Great Silence, which poses the question, even if space travel is too difficult, if life is out there, why don't we at least detect some sign of civilization like radio transmissions? Milan Kirkovic of the Astronomical Observatory in Belgrade points out that the median age of terrestrial planets in the Milky Way is about 1.8 gigayears, or 1 billion years greater than the age of the Earth and the solar system, which means that the median age of technological civilization should be greater than the age of human civilization by the same amount. It says the vastness of this interval indicates that one or more processes must suppress observability of extraterrestrial communities, since at this point there is no direct and or widely apparent evidence that extraterrestrial life exists. It merely means one of the following. We are A, the first intelligent beings ever to become capable of making our presence known and leaving our planet. At this point, there are no other life forms out there as advanced as us, or perhaps extraterrestrial life does exist, but for some reason, extraterrestrial life is so very rare and so very far away, we'll never make contact anyway, making extraterrestrial life non-existent in a practical sense at least. Or it is B, that many advanced civilizations have existed before us, but without exception, they have, for some unknown reason, existed and or expanded in such a way that they are completely undetectable by our instruments. Or it is C, there have been others, but they have all run into some sort of cosmic roadblock that eventually destroys them, or at least prevents their expansion beyond a small area. And of course, this article doesn't do so, but I would throw in option D, that God is real and what he told us in the Bible is true, and we'll get a little bit into that. But it also says one reason why it might not be able to detect aliens is because they are invisible to our technology. We are looking for something that resembles us, but extraterrestrial life can be beyond human comprehension. They could be staring us in the face and we just don't recognize them. The problem is that we're looking for something very much like us, assuming that they at least have something like the same mathematics and technology, said Lord Martin Rees, president of the Royal Society and astronomer to the Queen. I suspect there could be life and intelligence out there in forms we can't conceive, just as a chimpanzee can't understand quantum theory. It could be there as aspects of reality that are beyond the capacity of our brains. They could very well be just around the corner, but we cannot see them because they are simply not life as we know it, at least not yet. Maybe we don't really know what to look for, and that is why they are invisible to us. And that I agree with. I don't think that he's taking any kind of religious or spiritual stance there, but that does hit on something that many of us in the fringe Christian community have looked at and researched and studied, and I've written a couple books on the topic myself. Extra-dimensional entities. This is what we would call angels, demons, things like that. They're entities of more than 3 spatial dimensions, and because of that, they have those extra dimensions to be able to, in a sense, hide in. And that's something that is impossible for us to really get our heads around, but that's why I use the analogy. And every physicist that I know of or have read of that talks about this uses this analogy because it's such a good one. Is that of Flatland, which is basically, you think of a 2-dimensional universe in which there are, triangles and squares and, there, instead of cubes and spheres and pyramids and things like that. And the inhabitants of this Flatland universe they're called Flatlanders, and they only exist in 2 dimensions. They can only perceive 2 dimensions. Now, if you imagine Flatland as a universe, say in your living room, from the floor to the ceiling, and it only takes up the x-axis and the z-axis. There's no y-axis. So it's kind of like a 2-dimensional sheet, just like hanging from your ceiling or whatever. If you think of it like that, the Flatlanders can only see forward to them, which would be your left or right if you're staring right at it, meaning you could stare right at a Flatlander without it being able to see you. You could be centimeters or millimeters away from the Flatlander and it wouldn't be able to see you. And I think if we use that analogy, that thought exercise, and bump it up to 3 and 4 dimensions, it's kind of the same thing. Like, let's say angels are 4 dimensional, and I'm not including time in that. This is just spatial dimensions that we're talking about, not temporal. Now, I do believe that there are angels that have access to more than 4 dimensions, and I talked about that in my book, Cherubim Chariots, talking about the vision of Ezekiel. I think that the angels he saw were at least 5 dimensional. Because there's something going on there called extra dimensional unfolding, which is why these cherubim were kind of melded together. But if I get into that, I'll end up taking an hour just talking about that, and I don't want to do that. It's supposed to be a relatively short video. But anyway, I think that that's what we're looking at. These so-called alien beings. I think they're by and large extra dimensional. Now, I do believe that they have created physical beings, not in the way that God creates us, out of nothing, but the enemy will take things that are already created and skew them. Genesis 6 is a good example of that, when the sons of God mated with mankind, with women, human women, and created the Nephilim. That's a good example of taking something that already existed and twisting it, and that's what the enemy does. I think that the more physical aliens, or whatever you want to call them, that we see, it's either a 3 dimensional slice of a much larger extra dimensional being, or it is something that's been manufactured somewhere by genetics or cloning, something like that. And I get into all that in my book, and I have various videos and things on that too. But as always, I'm really interested to know what you have to say about this, what you guys think. Leave a comment below, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. We talk about a lot of weird stuff like this. It's not just aliens. We also talk about conspiracy stuff, false flag stuff, technology, prophecy, just the whole, cover it all. Make sure to share this, rate, comment, all that good stuff. And as always, thank you for watching. Take care, and God bless.